The night my mother introduced me as the daughter who cleans floors, everyone at my sister's engagement party laughed politely, except one man sitting at the table. Because the moment he saw the scar across my hand, the color drained from his face. 3 years earlier, that same hand had pulled him out of freezing black water while everyone else stood there too terrified to move. And the woman my family called a failure was secretly the owner of the company managing millions of dollars in luxury properties across the state. But the cruelest part of this story isn't the humiliation. It's the fact that my parents spent 28 years worshipping the wrong daughter and only realized it when it was far too late to repair everything they had destroyed. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and comment the city you're watching from. I want to know where this story found you tonight. My name is Olivia Mercer, and for most of my life, I existed like background noise inside my own family. At 28, I woke up every morning before sunrise, checked maintenance reports from 3 apartment complexes, answered emergency calls from tenants, and reviewed contracts worth more money than my parents had ever imagined. But none of them knew that. To them, I was still the disappointing daughter. Every Sunday, my mother compared me to Vanessa, my older sister, like it was a family tradition. Vanessa always had ambition, she'd say while looking directly at me. I stopped defending myself years ago. What hurt wasn't the insults. It was the certainty in their voices. They had already decided who I was before I ever had the chance to become someone else. So I learned to keep my real life hidden. Because when people only respect success, silence becomes protection. And the night of Vanessa's engagement party, I realized just how dangerous that silence had become. My mother cared about appearances more than truth. Diane Mercer could turn any conversation into a performance, especially if there were wealthy people watching. She loved introducing Vanessa as our successful daughter, with that proud smile that never belonged to me. My father was worse in quieter ways. Richard Mercer never yelled. He didn't need to. His disappointment lived in small sentences that stayed inside my head for years. Vanessa makes smart decisions. You've always lacked direction. Some people are just not built for success. When I was 19, I asked him for help paying for a certification course in property management. He refused without even looking up from his newspaper. But 6 months later, he helped Vanessa buy a luxury car. That was the moment something changed inside me. I stopped asking for support. Stopped explaining myself. Stopped expecting love to arrive someday. And once I accepted that, I started building my life in secret. What my parents never understood was that invisibility can become power when nobody thinks you're capable of anything. The humiliation didn't begin at the engagement party. It started years earlier, in tiny moments my parents treated like jokes. Whenever relatives visited, my mother would casually mention that I still cleaned apartments for a living, emphasizing the word cleaned like it explained my entire worth. She never mentioned that I owned the company. She never asked what I actually did. And I never corrected her. At first, I stayed silent because I was exhausted. Later, I stayed silent because I became curious. I wanted to know how people behaved when they believed you had no status. The answer was ugly. Neighbors ignored me until they needed favors. Relatives talked over me at dinners. Even Vanessa unconsciously treated my opinions like background noise. But the worst part was realizing my parents genuinely preferred the version of me that failed. Because if I succeeded, their judgment of me for 28 years would collapse. And people like my parents would rather protect their pride than face the truth. Vanessa's engagement party was held at a private country club overlooking the water, the kind of place my mother used to point at and call a successful life. I almost didn't go. But Vanessa called me personally and asked me to be there. Her voice sounded sincere enough that I ignored the feeling in my stomach and showed up anyway, wearing a simple black dress and keeping my scar hidden beneath my sleeve. The moment I arrived, my mother looked me up and down with visible disappointment. "That's what you're wearing?" Before I could answer, she pulled me toward a group near the champagne table where Daniel's family was standing, including his father, Charles Bennett, a powerful real estate investor everyone seemed desperate to impress. My mother smiled brightly. "And this," she said, gripping my arm, is our other daughter, Olivia. She cleans floors and disappears for weeks at a time, but at least she finally showed up tonight. The group laughed softly. Then my father added, we gave up trying to figure out her life years ago. I smiled politely. But across the room, Charles Bennett was staring at my hand. At first, I thought Charles Bennett was simply uncomfortable with my parents' behavior. But then his eyes locked onto the scar across my palm, and his entire expression changed. Not pity. Recognition. The room around us kept moving, glasses clinking, people laughing, my mother continuing her performance, but Charles looked frozen inside a memory only he understood. 3 years earlier, during a storm inspection at one of my oldest properties, I had seen a man fall through a broken section of dock into freezing water. The current dragged him beneath the wood supports before anyone reacted. I jumped without thinking. The rusted metal under the dock sliced my hand open while I pulled him up. By the time emergency services arrived, I was already gone. I never gave my name. I didn't want attention. I just wanted him alive. Now, standing across from me at my sister's engagement party, Charles slowly glanced from my scar to my face like he had just found something he'd been searching for. And suddenly, my parents weren't controlling the room anymore. 10 minutes later, Charles Bennett approached me quietly while everyone else was distracted near the dance floor. Miss Mercer, he said carefully, would you walk with me for a moment? My mother looked stunned that a man like him was speaking to me at all. Outside, the night air felt cold against my skin. Charles stopped near the edge of the balcony overlooking the marina lights. It was you, he said. 3 years ago. I didn't answer immediately. He looked at my scar again. I spent years trying to find the woman who pulled me out of that water. His voice carried something heavier than gratitude. Guilt. You disappeared before I could even thank you. I folded my arms calmly. You survived. That was enough. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then his expression shifted again, this time into confusion. Mercer Property Solutions, he murmured slowly. That company is yours, isn't it? Now it was my turn to freeze. Because Mercer Property Solutions managed several of his luxury buildings. And suddenly, the secret I had protected for years was standing inches away from becoming public. I could have lied. For a few seconds, I considered it. Keeping my life hidden had protected me for years. My parents couldn't destroy what they didn't know existed. But Charles was too observant for denial. So I finally nodded once. Yes. I own Mercer Property Solutions. He looked genuinely shocked. Not because I was a woman. Not because I came from nothing. Because he already knew my work. For the past 2 years, my company had quietly become one of the most reliable property management firms in the region. We handled emergency maintenance faster than competitors twice our size. Vacancy rates dropped under my systems. Tenants renewed contracts because problems actually got solved. While my parents mocked me for cleaning floors, I was studying business law at night, negotiating contracts at dawn, and reinvesting every dollar back into growth. I built everything slowly enough that nobody noticed. Charles exhaled sharply, almost smiling to himself. The entire time, he said quietly, they had no idea who was standing in front of them. And behind the ballroom glass doors, my mother was already watching us nervously. When we walked back inside together, the energy in the room had changed. People noticed when Charles Bennett gave someone his attention. Conversations softened as he stopped beside me near the center of the ballroom. My mother suddenly looked anxious instead of confident. Charles turned to me calmly. I reviewed the performance reports on my Harbor Ridge properties last month. Your company increased tenant retention by 18% in under a year. The room went silent. My father frowned like he thought he misheard him. Charles continued, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. I've worked with firms 3 times your size that delivered worse results. I could feel my mother trying to process the words property reports and your company in the same sentence. Then Charles reached into his jacket and handed me a business card. I'd like to discuss a new expansion contract. $4.8 million. Nobody moved. Not my parents. Not Vanessa. Not even Daniel. And for the first time in my life, my father looked at me without certainty. Like he suddenly realized he had spent decades speaking to someone he never actually understood. The silence didn't break immediately. It spread. Like everyone in the room was waiting for someone to explain how the daughter who cleans floors was now being offered a multi-million-dollar expansion deal by Charles Bennett himself. My mother laughed once, sharp, nervous. There must be some misunderstanding, she said quickly. Olivia doesn't run anything. She just helps people. But Charles didn't even look at her. His attention stayed on me. That report I reviewed, he said calmly, was signed by her. Every decision. Every system upgrade. Every contract negotiation. My father's face tightened. For the first time, I saw something unfamiliar in him. Uncertainty. Vanessa stepped closer, confused. Olivia, is this real? I didn't answer right away. Because I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I was thinking about how long I had lived as a secret just to survive them. Charles lowered his voice. You didn't just save my life 3 years ago, he said. You've been rebuilding mine ever since, without me even knowing. And behind me, I heard my mother whisper something she had never said before. My name. Without insult. But it already felt too late for it to matter. My mother tried to recover control of the room the only way she knew how, by rewriting reality. She stepped forward, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mr. Bennett, I think there's been a misunderstanding, she said gently. Olivia has always struggled with consistency. She's very imaginative, but... Charles raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. No misunderstanding. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. He turned slightly toward her. I don't base million-dollar contracts on imagination. I base them on audited performance data, tenant feedback, and financial growth reports. My father shifted uncomfortably beside her. For the first time, I saw him searching my face like it contained an answer he had missed for decades. Charles continued, calm but firm. And every single one of those reports leads back to your daughter. The word daughter landed heavier than anything else in the room. My mother's smile faltered. My father didn't speak. Because in that moment, the story they had told about me for 28 years started to collapse, and they had no replacement ready. After Charles's words, the room didn't go back to normal. It couldn't. People started looking at me differently, not like I had changed, but like they were finally seeing what had been there the whole time. That attention should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like exposure. Because I knew my parents. And silence that long always turns into damage. My mother pulled me aside near the hallway, her grip tight on my arm. Olivia, she whispered, voice shaking with anger disguised as concern, what did you tell him? I didn't tell him anything, I said calmly. Her eyes narrowed like she was trying to find the lie. My father joined us, lower voice, controlled but tense. You've embarrassed this family enough tonight. That sentence should have hurt. But it didn't anymore. Because I was watching something else in them now, fear. Not of losing me. Of losing control. Across the room, Charles was speaking quietly with Daniel's family, completely unconcerned with the tension building behind him. And for the first time, I realized something dangerous. They weren't going to accept the truth easily. They were going to fight it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the contract Charles had left behind. $4.8 million wasn't just money. It was visibility. It was proof. It was the moment my hidden life would stop being hidden. And that terrified me more than my parents ever did. Because visibility comes with consequences. At sunrise, I made a decision. I called Charles. I need to slow the expansion discussion, I said. There was a pause. "You're pulling back?" he asked. "No," I answered. "I'm protecting it." My parents didn't understand business. But they understood destruction. If they realized how valuable my company truly was, they wouldn't accept it. They would try to own it, control it, or erase it to protect their pride. So I made the hardest move yet. I paused all public visibility on Mercer Property Solutions for the first time in years. I delayed contract announcements. I tightened access to internal records. I sacrificed momentum. Because I wasn't ready for war. And worse. I knew they were just starting to wake up. 2 days after the engagement party, my father called me for the first time in years. Not to insult me. To ask questions. "Olivia," he said carefully, "about that company, how big is it exactly?" I almost smiled at the irony. For 28 years, he never asked about my life. Now he wanted numbers. "I manage several commercial portfolios," I answered neutrally. There was a long silence. Then my mother took the phone. Her voice was different. Controlled. Polite. Dangerous. "We just want to understand you better," she said. But I knew my mother. She didn't want understanding. She wanted leverage. Meanwhile, I noticed something happening quietly in the background: subtle inquiries, indirect questions through relatives, sudden interest in property management trends. They were collecting information about me. Not because they cared. Because they finally realized I had value. And now that they knew, they wouldn't stop at curiosity. They would try to reposition themselves inside my life, before I closed the door completely. I stopped hiding the moment Charles Bennett sent the formal invitation. A private dinner. Executives. Investors. And, somehow, my family. My mother arrived first, smiling like nothing had happened. My father followed, tense, scanning the room like he was trying to understand where he stood in it. Then Charles stood. And he didn't look at them. He looked at me. "I requested this meeting," he said calmly, "to finalize the expansion contract with Mercer Property Solutions. And to clarify something important." He placed a folder on the table. Inside were performance audits, tenant reports, financial growth charts, all signed by me. My father leaned forward. "What is this supposed to prove?" Charles answered without hesitation. "That your daughter has been running a multi-million-dollar company while you called her a failure." My mother froze. For the first time, I spoke clearly. "I saved a man from drowning 3 years ago. That man is sitting at this table. And he has trusted me with millions ever since." Charles added quietly. "And I have no interest in your approval. Only her competence." My father finally looked at me like a stranger. But it was too late to rewrite who I had already become. The room didn't explode. It collapsed into silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that happens when truth finally removes every excuse people have been hiding behind. My mother tried to speak, but no sound came out at first. When it finally did, it wasn't anger anymore. It was panic. "Olivia, we didn't know." "Yes," I interrupted softly. "You did." That stopped her completely. Because we both knew the difference between ignorance and choice. They didn't fail to see me. They chose not to. My father exhaled like something inside him had finally cracked. "All these years," he muttered. "You were building this, alone?" "I wasn't alone," I said. "I just stopped needing you." Charles slid the final contract across the table. The expansion agreement was already approved. $4.8 million. My signature was the only one left. I signed it. Not as their daughter. As the owner of Mercer Property Solutions. Vanessa stepped closer afterward, quieter than I had ever seen her. "You never told me," she said. "You never asked," I replied, without anger. That was the difference between us. She lived inside the story they told. I escaped it. My parents tried one last time after the dinner, pulling me aside in the hallway like the past could still be negotiated. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse them again. I simply said the truth they had been avoiding for decades. I am not your failure. I am what you refuse to see. And I walked away. There was no dramatic reconciliation. No sudden redemption. Some damage doesn't disappear just because the truth is revealed. Weeks later, my company expanded across 2 new states. Charles remained a trusted partner, never once treating me like a debt to be repaid. Only a professional who had already proven herself. My father stopped making comparisons. My mother stopped introducing me incorrectly. Vanessa started asking real questions for the first time in her life. But I didn't move back into their world. I built my own. Because I finally understood something simple. I didn't need them to acknowledge my worth for it to exist. It already did. And for the first time in my life, I stopped waiting to be chosen. I chose myself. And if this story stayed with you, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What city are you watching from, and what would you have done in her place?